गिरिधारी शिष्य राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जाय। श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जू की जाय। नित्यानंद विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद् भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जाय। नित्यानंद विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद् भक्तिवेदांता वामन गोसाई महाराज की जाय। नित्यानंद विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद् भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जाय। नित्यानंद विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद् भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्यानंद विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्यानंद विष्णु महाभागवत श्री गोरक्षर बाबाजी महाराज की जय। नित्यानंद विश्व शिव सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्यानंद विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपानु गौड़िया गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शारद गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नाम जय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल कौरमंडल व्रजमंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अविष्ट विराट गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय. And for those of you following Akadashi today, I think on the other side of the world, Jai Shri Indira Akadashi Titi ki Jai. Akadashi Titi Palan Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Hare Krishna. All right, so we'll do a short Mangalacharan and then begin. Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahavadanyaya krishna prema pradayate krishnaya krishna chaitanya namne gauratishe namaha. He krishna karuna sindho dinabandho jagatpate gopesha gopika kanta radha kanta namostute. तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये. वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवास्य च कृष्ण भक्ति प्रद देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः. भज श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद. हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranams, Nri Hari Prabhu, Bhavatarani Mataji, Anadi Krishna Prabhu, Gopal Ghanasham Prabhu, Kishore Prabhu, and Rohini Nandan, Rupa Raghunath Prabhu, and everybody else that's watching. I'm guessing Indira Mataji is there. Also, pranams to all the devotees watching in the future, like Shachi Devi, Jayadev Prabhu, and everybody else. So, we are a couple days I wasn't able to read. One day because of songbook stuff, the next day because the Wi-Fi wasn't working and my mobile data was going too slow. But we are continuing reading these different Upanishadic or Puranic. I don't know actually if this one, the story that we're reading now, if it's from the Upanishads or from the Puranas, but this is Last time we read about Brahma, Indra, and Virochana. And today we're reading about King Jānaśruti and Raikva Muni. And in our next reading, we'll read about Javala and Satyakam. That's my favorite one. I love that one. So these are all written by Śrī Śrīmad Bhaktivedānta Vāmana Gosvāmī Mahārāja for the Gaudiya Patrika a long time ago. So yeah, let's begin. Sorry I started so late. I all of a sudden got nature's call at the right when it was time to start. So all right. Okay. Oh, 1 second. Just looking at the comments. Oh, network issue. Okay. Gopal Ghanshyam. That's on your side, right? Or are you talking about on my side? Anyways, if there is any network issue on my side, anyone can let me know. Okay, so King Jānaśruti and Raikva Muni. Let's just see when was this published? Okay, year 7, issue 12. I don't know what. Just okay. In ancient times, there was an exceptionally generous king named Poutrayana Jānaśruti. To ensure that everyone in his kingdom was adequately fed, he established charitable boarding houses throughout his empire. One day, pleased by his generous nature, which is rare even among the heavenly beings, a group of celestial saints assumed the form of swans, and during the night, descended to the king's palace to give him their audience from the sky above. It was summer, and the king was sleeping in the highest open terrace of his palace. As they flew above him, the swan flying behind all the others spoke to the swan at the front. Do you not see the magnificent bodily effulgence of King Jānaśruti glowing like bright daylight in the night sky? Do not pass through that radiance, as its blazing heat may scorch you. Disregarding his praise, the swan flying ahead of him said, "To which fellow do you refer? You speak as if he is Shaktavan Raikva." The former swan inquired, did I say Shaktavan? I meant to say Shakatvan Raikva. The former swan inquired, "Who is Shakatvan Raikva?" Raikva is a great sage who is conversant with all that is worth knowing, for he has attained Brahma Gyan, knowledge of the absolute truth. The pious activities performed by Raikva encompass every possible pious activity that can be performed. This is but a brief introduction of him. King Jānaśruti listened in dismay as the swan decried him and glorified Raikva Muni. Disheartened by what he had heard, he restlessly reflected on the swan's words for the remainder of the night. When he awoke the next morning, he narrated the entire incident to his charioteer and then ordered him, "Go now and seek out Shakatvan Raikva. I would like to see him in person." And Shakat is a cart, right? I'm just thinking of Shakatasura. And that's what we see in the picture here also, right? There's a cart thing behind it. Let's see. Anyways, okay. One second, sorry. The charioteer, I would like to see him in person. So then the charioteer searched throughout many towns and villages to no avail. He then returned to the king. "Search for the exalted Raikva Muni on the banks of rivers," ordered the king. "Search for him in deserted forest areas and in any other places unspoiled by the company of immoral men. These are the places where saintly personalities normally reside." On the order of the king, the charioteer resumed his search. Finally, he came to a deserted place where he found a man sitting under a bullock cart, scratching the itches on his body. The charioteer sat down beside him and inquired from him, "O revered sage, are you Shakatvan Raikva?" "Yes, I am," replied the Muni. The charioteer returned to the king at once and informed him about the sage. Thereafter, King Jānaśruti went to Raikva Muni, bearing the gift of 600 cows, 1 golden necklace, and 1 chariot. He offered the gifts to the Muni and addressed him. "Please inform me about the deity you worship." The king's gifts could not satisfy the saint. "O peasant," said the Muni, "you are in the grip of sorrow and envy. I would say, in fact, that you are a peasant and not a king. You can keep your necklace and chariot and all these cows for yourself." The king became overwhelmed with anxiety, and after some time returned to the saint. This time, he came with 1,000 cows, and even more opulent golden necklace, a chariot driven by the fastest horses, and his own beloved daughter. He approached the saint with folded hands. With folded hands, he begged the Muni, "Please accept all these gifts. Accept my daughter as your wife, and bless me by making this village a place for your ashram. O Muni, mercifully instruct me about your worshipful deity." Raikva Muni spoke to the king again. "O grief-stricken peasant, your host of gifts is not my impetus to instruct you. You have offered me your daughter simply to impel me to instruct you. But without first rendering service to the spiritual master, what profound knowledge can you hope to elicit from him simply by offering him some remuneration, some dakshina?" After speaking in this way, Raikva Muni began instructing the king in spiritual science, in Brahma Vidya. He taught him to worship Vayu, the destroyer of the external world, together with Prana, or Paramatma, the supersoul, the destroyer of the internal world. So Vayu, the destroyer of the external world, and Prana or Paramatma, the destroyer of the internal world, to worship those two as the very form of spirit, as Brahma. In this way, he imparted Prana Vidya to the king. The place where Raikva Muni imparted these divine teachings to King Jānaśruti was later known as Raikva Parna village in the state of Mahavrisha. The above Upakyan, the moral history from Shruti, teaches us the following. Qualities and abilities dictate societal stratums. 4 stratums, 4 varnas, have been created in society based on the various qualities and ability of mankind. It is entirely scientific, natural, and in accordance with the revealed scriptures to ascertain a person's varna according to his actual qualities, and not simply according to his birth. Raikva Muni had initially addressed King Jānaśruti as a peasant, as a Shudra, because even though the king was a generous and affluent aristocrat, he was a Kshatriya, he had become overwhelmed with grief. Moreover, the sole reason for his lamentation had been his envy of Raikva Muni's superior fame. However, when the king understood the importance of serving the spiritual master, he was relieved from his sorrow and was subsequently granted Brahma Vidya by the Muni. Oh, and Haribol Bindu Mata. Oh, and Rukmini Didi and Champak Mataji, Haribol. Now, 2. Never condemn a Vaishnava's apparent flaws. More often than not, we will fail to ascertain the qualification of the spiritual master if we judge him on the basis of the apparent flaws in his nature or body, or in his social conduct and personal behavior. If someone considers the spiritual master who knows the absolute truth to be a man of worldly intelligence and subsequently disobeys him, he commits aparad. As a result, bhakti can never arise in his heart. Raikva Muni resided under a bullock cart. His condition was extremely wretched, and he had inflamed sores all over his body. He appeared to be just like an ordinary person who is attached to his body and bound to suffer the results of his activities. Yet, King Jānaśruti did not perceive his spiritual master as a mortal living being, and he was thereafter qualified to learn the mystery of prana vidya. I think another point also is, well, anyways, I'm not going to speak more on things. I'll just say it, whatever. But also in terms of, that was according to his body, but then also in terms of his nature, like both times he came to bring him all these gifts, even his own daughter the second time, still the Raikva Muni became like, chastised him, and like that seems like very harsh. So that's like in terms of their nature, it might seem like overly harsh. But Srila Sanatana Goswami Prabhu was constantly absorbed in the ecstasy of his own internal realizations, and yet he manifested the pastime of suffering from a type of leprosy. To consider him an ordinary living being, bound by the results of his past activities, is a grave offense. Therefore, the scriptures have forewarned the sadhak. Drishtai swabhava janatai vapushashtra doshai na prakritatamiha bhakta janasya pashye gangam pasam na khalu buddhaphena pankay brahma dravatvam apagacchati niradharmai. So that's what here it says. Swabhava janatai, born from their nature, and vapu, and the faults arising from their body. Na prakritatvam iha bhakta. Do not see these devotees with this kind of mundane as being material. Prakritatvam. It's just like, anyways, let's read the translation. This verse declares that it is wholly inappropriate to perceive a pure devotee as mundane or lowly based on the physical or behavior flaws visible in him. There is no possibility that a pure devotee will ever be in bad association, or that he will ever offend the Lord's holy name. Here the term physical flaws refers to unattractiveness, aches and pains, deformity, and the infirmity of old age. The term swabhav janatai, this refers to, this is behavioral flaws. The term behavioral flaws refers to birth in a low caste, rudeness, laziness, and so on. Sometimes during the rainy season, the water of the Ganga becomes filled with bubbles, foam, and mud. Nonetheless, Ganga does not even slightly give up her nature as liquid transcendence. In exactly the same way, self-realized Vaishnavas are not polluted by any of the flaws arising from the birth and transformations of a material body. Surely, therefore, if someone who is endeavoring to perform bhajan considers the apparent material flaws of the Shuddha Vaishnavas to be contemptible, he will certainly become an offender. Oh, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams. Śrīmad Bhaktivedānta Sajan Maharaj. When a disciple does not accept discipline, gentle punishments and reprimands by Guru and Vaishnavas are highly beneficial for their disciples and servitors. The resolve we just read the other day, what was it? Srila Bhakti Shup Saranti Goswami Maharaj. He said that, I forgot exactly what it is, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, if a disciple, if one can submit to the words of the Vaishnavas, no matter how cruel, harsh, and something they may seem, then that person's eternal welfare is assured. Something like that. but this is, of course, referring to pure Vaishnavas also. The resolve to accept discipline finds its success in the title disciple, right? The word disciple comes from the word discipline, I guess. Makes sense? Even though I became the disciple of Sri Gurudev, who is most compassionate, whenever he mildly disciplines me out of his causeless mercy, and with the determination to eliminate all the obstacles from the path of my devotional practice, I find it totally unacceptable. At that time, I'm even audacious enough to claim that he is heartless, that he lacks affection, and that he is biased, unintelligent, and so forth. There's such a wonderful example of this personality that I never knew about before. I think his name is Bhaktivedānta Maharaj, or no, was it something else? Anyways, maybe we can see if we can find it if there's time at the end, because he was an embodiment of this example. He was disciple of Srila Bhakti Sri Saranti Goswami Mahārāja also, and yeah, there's one time. Well, there's a few different stories of how harsh, seemingly harsh, Srila Bhakti Sri Saranti Goswami Mahārāja was with him. One time, Srila Bhakti Sri Saranti Goswami Mahārāja told him to get something from the market. And then he went and brought that thing. And then he started chastising it, like, why did you bring this thing from the market? And even though he told him to bring it, but he acted as if he hadn't told him to bring it, and that he was acting independently. And why did you bring this thing? And then this God, I forgot what his name was. I think his name is Bhaktivedānta, something like that. Anyway, anyone can correct me, anyways. And then he went away, and then somebody else who was with Srila Bhakti Sri Saranti Goswami said, "But you did tell him to get that. Why did you?" And then he said, "I'm testing him to see if how he can tolerate things, because in order to become the acharya of a mission, you have to have this kind of tolerance." So it wasn't done out of anger or malice or any kind of bad feeling. It was for the ultimate good, for his benefit and for the benefit of the mission. And so that's why we can't think, yeah. Anyway, so I'm willing to be humiliated. Sorry, that wasn't a very good. Anyways, maybe we can find that afterwards. I'm willing to be humiliated, reprimanded, and heavily beaten by Maya hundreds of times. But I cannot accept or tolerate the affectionate transcendental discipline of Sri Gurudev. Consequently, I forever relinquish devotional service to Krishna, and thus I commit spiritual suicide. At that time, with the intention of lording it over my Gurudev and trying to approach Sri Bhagavan directly, I become entangled in transgressing proper etiquette, and as I begin to consider myself more intelligent than my Gurudev, I fancy myself as his instructor. King Jānaśruti did not lose heart, even after repeatedly hearing crude words from Raikva Muni. Therefore, Raikva Muni considered him a suitable disciple and imparted to him knowledge of the absolute truth. It was with this same intention that Jagadguru Srila Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada used to chastise his most intimate disciples. He would tell all his disciples that the most important quality for anyone living in the temple is the ability to learn tolerance. What is it? There's what is it? Shohe she rohe. That person who can tolerate, only that person will remain living in the not. Offering everything to Sri Guru, including yourself. It is not possible for someone to obtain knowledge of the absolute truth from Sri Gurudev if he does not offer him all that he possesses, and indeed his very self. It is not possible to obtain Sri Gurudev's mercy simply by offering him material objects. Someone qualifies as a true disciple only if he becomes nishkinchan, by offering Srila Gurudev everything he has, including his own self. If I simply declare, "Oh Gurudev, everything belongs to you alone, but I keep the keys to my safe with me," then I am revealing that I do not trust him, which is not at all indicative of the most elevated stage of genuine service to Sri Guru, Guru Seva. When the disciple surrenders from within and keeps nothing as his own, then Srila Gurudev considers that intimate and loving disciple, that Vishramba Snigdha Shishya, as his own. Diksha kale bhakta kore atma samarpan, she kale Krishna tare kore atma sama, she deha kore tar chiranandamoy, aprakrita dehe tar charana bhajai. That's Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Lila 4, 192 to 193. When the bhakta fully dedicates himself at the time of receiving Diksha, Shri Krishna makes him as spiritual as himself, permeating the bhakta's body with transcendence and bliss. With his spiritual body, the bhakta then worships Krishna's lotus feet. This is why Raikva Muni had said to King Jānaśruti that one cannot become the servitor of Sri Guru just by offering him material objects. Only if the disciple offers everything to Sri Guru, including his very self, can he attain spiritual knowledge, Brahma Vidya. That is to say, he will be able to perform transcendental Guru Seva. Translated from Sri Gaudiya Patrika, Year 7, Issue 12. Wow, such beautiful, important instructions, huh? Okay. We still have a little bit of time left. Let me see if I can find that story about Bhakti Ranjan Sagar Maharaj, I think it is. Let me see. Oops. Bhakti Ranjan. No. Oops, I spoke Bhakti. Yes, there it is. Okay. Let's read this. Oops, wrong page. Sorry. There. I mean, this is very long. Here's a picture of Srila Bhakti Ranjan Sagar Goswami Maharaj. He was the Acharya after Srila Bhakti Sri Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj. And so, let me just, there are many stories in here. I'll just read one. Okay, let's read this one. Okay, so once Srila Bhakti Sri Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj sent Sri Nityananda Das to obtain sweets, and I guess his name before was Nityananda Das, before he became sannyasi. So he sent Sri Nityananda Das to obtain sweets, flower garlands, and other items for a festival. Sri Nityananda Das went to the market on foot, and when he returned with the items, Srila Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj scolded him in front of everyone in the assembly. He said, "Where did you go? Who asked you to go?" He reprimanded him harshly. Nityananda Das did not say anything. He just listened quietly. Then a devotee asked Srila Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj, "Maharaj, you yourself sent him to bring the items from the market, and he has brought him. Why are you scolding him?" Then Srila Bhakti Sri Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj replied to him quietly, so that Sri Nityananda Das wouldn't hear. He said, "I'm testing his patience and tolerance. I want to see whether in the future he will be able to endure false criticism and still fulfill the responsibilities entrusted to him by me. If in the future he holds any significant position in the mat, such as the post of Acharya, he must possess the essential quality of tolerance required for such a role." On another occasion also, Srila Bhakti Sri Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj tested the patience and tolerance of Sri Nityananda Das. Every morning while staying in his Gurudev's Kolkata mat, Sri Nityananda Das would go for bhiksha and return by noon. He meticulously kept note of every penny he collected and every penny he spent. As long as Srila Bhakti Swarup Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj was physically present, the devotees in charge of all three mats, Puri, Navadip, and Kolkata, would present him with the annual accounts of their respective mat. Sri Nityananda Das personally looked after the accounts of the Kolkata mat and would annually submit them to his Gurudev. Once, after doing so, Srila Bhakti Swarup Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj called him and said, Nityananda, I need you to write a letter to the in charge of the Puri mat. Srila Bhakti Swarup Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj proceeded to dictate the letter, in which he said that while the Puri mat was being managed well, Nityananda was mismanaging the money. Oh my God. He's making him write about himself. That Nityananda was mismanaging the money in the Kolkata mat and not handling things properly. In other words, Sri Nityananda Das had to personally write a letter falsely accusing himself of mismanaging funds and being incapable of properly managing the mat's operations. This incident demonstrates his profound tolerance and humility. He did not protest or raise any objection. In this way, he successfully passed the test given by his revered Gurudev. Consequently, later, Srila Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj formally chose Pujapad Sagar Maharaj as a future Acharya of their mat, and he personally documented this. Pujapad Sagar Maharaj used to say, a resident of the mat must be tolerant. To the extent that one's nature is to complain just to fulfill one's selfish desires, to that extent, one is an Avaishnav. In other words, that person is far from being a Vaishnav. That's a whole other level when you can tolerate being falsely accused. These are two stories now where he had to tolerate being falsely accused. And it wasn't like Srila. And we also see the example of how Guru will sometimes do things like that. Not because Srila Bhakti Swarup Siddhanta Goswami was just mistaken, but it was for the topmost purification. So, yeah. And also we see in the life of Srila Bhakti Swarup Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj, there are many stories of how Srila Bhaktivedānta Goswami Maharaj was very harsh with him and also put him through similar tests like he put this Srila Bhakti Ranjan Sagar Maharaj. So yeah, that's why it's not easy to understand the actions of pure Vaishnavas. We have to be so careful. I just want to look for that one quote again that we read recently from Srila Bhakti Swarup Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj, and then we can end after that. It's short, just like one little paragraph. I think it's this issue. Yeah, it's this issue. Okay. Let me just open it with preview. Okay. No, it's right. Oops. Here it is. Okay. Let's see if we can find this. This isn't the one I was looking for, but this is also really good. This is Srila Bhakti Swarup Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj. He says, those who take shelter of the lotus feet of a Sadguru with a desire to do Hari Bhajan should simple-heartedly follow Shri Gurudev's instructions with their body, mind, and words. If they fail to drive extraneous desires from their hearts, the prohibited endeavors for karma and gyan will present numerous deterrents to remaining on the path of Shuddha Bhakti. If the disciple's heart is not clean, Shri Guru's heart does not reflect in it. Only out of immense fortune does the moon of bhakti that exists in the heart of Shri Gurudev, Mahabhagavat, manifest within the heart of the disciple. But this is not, these are, I just wanted to read it because those are great quotes, but this might be on the previous page, yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, let me search. I think I remember the word pitiless. Yes, there it is. Okay, so this is what I was looking for. Srila Bhakti Swarup Siddhanta Goswami Maharaj says, the words of pure devotees are contrary to our sense gratification. No matter how pitiless and harsh their words may seem, if we can sincerely submit to them with our body, mind, and words, our eternal welfare is assured. Wow. All right, so that is our reading for today. Tomorrow we will read one of my favorite stories in these like Upanishadic or Puranic stories. It's the story of Jabala and Satyakama. So yeah, we'll read that tomorrow. I'll just do a quick Mahamantra and that will be our program for today. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. I remember there's this one other story that comes to my mind right now. One time, I might be getting a little details about this wrong, but Sharbhuj Prabhu, who is married to Madhavi, he was with my Srila Gurudev in his room. Maybe it was I think it was a private darshan or something. And there was Sharbhuj Prabhu and some other devotees. And then my Gurudev, he chastised Sharbhuj Prabhu and said that, what did he say? He said, oh, I know that you are beating your wife and you must stop this. And Sharbhuj Prabhu, he's a, well, I mean, at that time he wasn't, but like he is a black belt jujitsu champion. Like he teaches jujitsu as a profession. And at that time also, he was very into MMA and protection. And that's all about protecting. Protecting women is like his dharma. And so like nothing could be further from the truth. He was definitely not beating. He was married to my sister before, Purangi. And so he was definitely not beating my sister. But his whole thing was about protection. And like you couldn't imagine like a worse thing to say to him, a more like, what? And he was totally shaken, like, what? Like he couldn't believe it. And then afterwards, the darshan, then my Gurudev later told him that this man in the room, he was actually beating his wife, but he didn't have the trust in me or to be able to withstand my chastisement. But I know that you could withstand my chastisement. And so then like my Gurudev chastised him to chastise this other person to make him feel like, oh my God, like, and so actually Sadhvuj wasn't the one that my Gurudev was targeting in that chastisement. So if that's just like another example of being falsely accused. But it also shows we should feel honored if the Guru feels like he can chastise us, because it shows that Guru knows that there's enough trust in the relationship that we're not going to turn against him because we get chastised. That shows that, yeah, that there's trust, and that the Guru knows that you can tolerate this. And so we should feel so fortunate, and that he's doing it. Like Nityananda Prabhu also was, like, how did he chastise Shivananda Sen? We always glorify Nityananda Prabhu as being Akroda Paramananda Nityananda Rai. And then we see when Shivananda Sen was, because they were blocked at the thing. So it wasn't at all Shivananda's fault that they weren't able to get to the next point. But then Nityananda angrily came to him and kicked him in the chest. Does that seem like... So that's why when with all these qualities of the Vaishnava, we have such a very shallow understanding of what the meaning is to be never angry and all these things. But the qualities of a Vaishnava transcend our material idea of what these qualities mean. And so we have to be very careful when we are, and we have to understand that we haven't actually had darshan of the Vaishnav's qualities in the true sense. My Param Gurudev wrote a whole article on that topic called One Must Correctly Identify a Vaishnava. But yeah. All right, that's our program for today. Jai Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Jai Shri Gurudev Ki Jai, Jai Shri Param Gurudev Ki Jai, Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai, Swaparshad Shri Gaur Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopigan Ki Jai, Shri Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Jai Shri Nityal Prabhu Śrīmad Bhaktivedānta Vāmana Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. Also, Jai Srila Bhakti Ranjan Sagar Maharaj Ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Shri Saranti Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Vivek Bharati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, all the associates of Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Padadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha Pancha Kalpaturu Bhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams Niri Hari Prabhu, Bhavatarani Mataji, Anadi Krishna Prabhu, Gopal Ghanasham Prabhu, Rukmini Didi, Champak Mataji, and everybody watching on YouTube and Facebook. Give me a second here to open up, see who's there. Oops. Sorry. There it is. Okay. Dandavat pranams, Kishore Prabhu. I see Ghanasham Prabhu on YouTube as well. Dandavat pranams, Rohini Nandan Prabhu, Rupa Raghunath Prabhu, Bindu Mataji, Shripad Bhaktivedānta Sajan Maharaj, Ganga Mataji. Kishore is asking me to post Srila Bhakti Ranjan Sagar Maharaj's biography. Okay, I'll share that. Haribo Rai Ramananda Prabhu. And Kishore said that Shadabhuj told him that story. Cool. All right. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow for the very special story of Satyakama and Javala. Right, Haribo. Oh, is there any point anybody wants to mention before I end the stream for today?